Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Acupuncture is My Life. Now, in this episode, I want to get back into discussions on cancer. But in this case, I want to be specific. I want to focus on pancreatic cancer. And the fact that there are certain things that many of us globally are doing every day that is increasing our risk of pancreatic cancer. And this is one of the most deadly forms of cancer there is. And it usually goes undetected until it's too late. Now, I would say pancreatic cancer is usually responsible for somewhere in the ballpark of about 11% of all cancer deaths globally. That's a big number. And I would give or take 1 or 2 percentage points. Because I've read various studies and, the numbers ranged anywhere from 7% to 10%. So there is room for variation, but understand something. Cancer overall is a complex set of diseases. And for many of us, lifestyle plays a very, very important role. And we have a lot of control over our lifestyles. And we take it for granted, like we overlook that. And this is why I say there are certain habits that many of us globally are engaging in every day. And we're totally unaware that we're increasing our risk for pancreatic cancer. And usually the outcome for this disease is very poor and is not as well understood as other forms of cancer, but the outcome is very, very poor because, as I stated, by the time you're diagnosed for this, it's usually too late and you're just given a certain amount of time to live. So this is why I decided to do this podcast today. Because I want to discuss things in which you can do to sort of put the odds in your favor to reduce your risk of this form of cancer. Because many of you are partaking in certain, like I said, daily habits that's increasing your risk of it. So it's important that you're aware. But let's all right, one of the risks, let's say chronic pancreatitis. And before I jump into this, some of you guys, if you're concerned about any of the habits that I'm discussing, message me on the Acupuncture is My Life app. Many of you have it, but those that don't, download it. It's free. It's to your benefit to own the Acupuncture is My Life app. So much you can learn about acupuncture. It's about health overall. Download the app. But now one habit is chronic pancreatitis. And many of us are walking around with inflammation of the pancreas. And we're unaware of it. And it's strongly tied to pancreatic cancer. So you're at such a high risk of pancreatic cancer if you're walking around with an inflamed pancreas long term. And, you're at an even more risk the older you are and you're smoking. And you've been smoking for quite some time. You see, if you were seeing a physician annually, but definitely an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits throughout the year, a physician can and would explain this to you if you ask. But if an acupuncturist detects your pancreas as being inflamed, and it's diagnosed differently, and this will all be explained to you once you sit with an acupuncturist, we would address it. And if you have a problem with smoking, there are acupuncture as well as acupressure points on the body that can assist you with quitting smoking. See an acupuncturist. What's another issue relative to lifestyle? And that's obesity. I speak of this a lot. Deal with weight loss. Abdominal acupuncture, auricular acupuncture. Just, oh my gosh, the combination is insane. Acupuncture is just so awesome. I'm not saying this just because I'm a doctor of acupuncture. It's just awesome. But understand something. If you have a body mass index of over 30, you're at a 20% higher chance of developing pancreatic cancer. And guess what? And in being obese, it can negatively impact your survival rate if you were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So it's like a double-edged sword. And this is why so many times you hear me in so many podcasts discussing exercise and not sitting for an extended period of time and, just taking walks, being as active as possible. It's important. I speak of it a lot. And diet is super important. If you have no choice at work and you have to sit a lot, I understand. I mean, there's mechanisms today where you can work standing up. So that sort of lessens your excuse. But understand if you can't move as much. So you know what you're going to do? You're going to focus on making that adjustment in your diet. How about that? So eat less. If you're not moving and your body doesn't require the, exorbitant amounts of fuel for energy output, then guess what? Guess what you're going to do? Now you can eat fruits and vegetables and not worry about being hungry. Now you can adjust your diet relative to the amount of energy output. See an acupuncturist, Eastern Nutrition Consultation. Bam, you have it right there. In your face. Okay? Because understand something. There's a bunch of evidence representing the role that weight control plays in improving the outcome for patients with cancer. Big time. It is super important to maintain a healthy weight throughout your life, because it'll enhance your outcome after being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It'll also help prevent pancreatic cancer from even developing. See an acupuncturist. You know what else? Type 2 diabetes. Acupuncture is great. For dealing with this disorder. But before I even jump into type 2 diabetes and closing out with obesity, playing a huge part when it comes to being diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. You see, obesity to an acupuncturist can be due to a few contributing factors. Let's say one is insufficient righteous chi, which is caused by chronic illness, constitutional deficiency, or even aging. Because gradual deprivation of kidney essence affects the fire that exists between the energy that exists between both kidneys that support the spleen and stomach. And so when there's a dysfunction of, let's say, the spleen, and it's no longer able to transform and transport, guess what? Dampness and turbid phlegm and all types of stasis will accumulate. And that can contribute to pancreatic cancer. Another, again, lack of physical exercise, because lack of exercise causes poor circulation of chi and blood. And it tends to result in, let's say, fluids and food not being able to be digested properly. And guess what happens to this digestive essence? It will not be distributed throughout the body properly, causing turbid dampness and phlegm and fat to accumulate and stagnate in a person's organs, as well as the meridians and the muscles and the skin. See, acupuncturists, we all understand this when it comes to obesity. Another, again, is an improper diet. I can't say it enough, Eastern nutrition consultation, because an overindulgence, let's say, in rich, greasy, sweet foods tends to, again, injure what? And I know you guys know this. All 40-something thousand of you know this already. I say it over and over. It injures the middle jiao, the spleen and stomach, the two organs that are responsible for the derivation of chi and blood after birth. Okay? You don't want to negatively affect the functions of these two organs, because then it'll lead to the generation of damp heat and phlegm, which will interrupt the metabolism of fluids and foods. Because you see, the dysfunction of the spleen and stomach tends to aggravate the formation and accumulation of dampness, as well as heat and phlegm. Another, and I'm not going to get too deep into obesity because I want you guys to see an acupuncturist, constitutional factors can play a part. It can be inherited based on parents' actions, and that's a lot deeper than you have to think about that. You have to take a moment and think about that for a second. Okay? But type 2 diabetes also. And this is why just taking care of yourself. Taking good care of yourself by seeing a physician annually and making regular visits to an acupuncturist changes your life. But type 2 diabetes can play a part. It could be a symptom of pancreatic cancer. It's a risk factor, a manifestation and a prognostic factor for pancreatic cancer. Because roughly in the ballpark of about 85% of pancreatic cancer patients, they usually present with either new or onset type 2 diabetes or some type of impaired glucose tolerance when they're usually diagnosed with this disorder or disease. Okay? See an acupuncturist. You know, because what plays into diabetes? Again, improper diet, back to eating Lots of greasy foods, sweet foods loaded with sugar, rich foods, alcohol can also hinder the function of the spleen and stomach. And this impaired function of the spleen and stomach leads to food stagnation, which generates heat. And due to the fact that heat is drying, it'll injure yin and the fluids in the body. And you'll present with symptoms of type 2 diabetes. And I've said this in the past, emotional stress can play a part. Watch Acupuncture's My Life TV on the internet, or watch Acupuncture's My Life TV streaming on Roku TV. We discussed this in the section on mental and emotional disorders. Emotional stress, which is usually caused by like chronic emotional upset, being angry, it can disturb the flow of qi and stagnate qi, creating lots of internal heat, and you'll get these spontaneous sweating, always feeling hot, because heat tends to consume, again, the yin and fluid of the body, more so the lungs and the stomach, where you'll present with symptoms of type 2 diabetes. And I said this before, the other is overexertion. Why? Because overexerting yourself can exhaust both yin and essence. And another form of overexertion is excessive sexual activity. So please, ladies and gentlemen, be careful when it comes to that. But understand something. Extreme yin deficiency tends to consume lung and stomach yin and fluid, therefore leading to kidney, lung, and stomach yin deficiency, presenting with symptoms, again, of type 2 diabetes. But guess what else? Here's something else many individuals do not think about when it comes to certain habits that increase their risk of pancreatic cancer, and that is exposure to certain toxic chemicals in the air. Believe it or not, where you live plays a huge part, because exposure to certain types of chemicals can increase your risk of pancreatic cancer. And this is in the form of, let's say, pollution that's affected the water, how clean is the water that you drink in the area in which you live. And there are individuals who live around farmlands and they have exposure to pesticides. And then where do you live within the country in which you exist, and you're exposed to petrochemicals and dyes and benzene? These things increase your risk of pancreatic cancer. That's why it's important to see an acupuncturist for regular wellness visits. Because understand something. The wealth is not in an app on your phone, nor is it in cryptocurrency. The wealth is, it's not in the bank, it's not in a safe, it's not under your mattress. The wealth is not in your pocket, it's not in your wallet, nor is it in your purse. And the wealth isn't in a shoebox in the closet, nor is it under the doghouse in the backyard. The wealth is in you. It's in you. But guess what else? Another bad habit, which is why I say over and over, see an acupuncturist. And that's if you're a smoker. Because smoking also increases your risk of pancreatic cancer. Also. And I know many of you are going to message me on the Acupuncture's My Life app saying, it's tough. You've tried quitting smoking and you just can't. And I understand that. Again, I'm going to repeat it again and again and again and again until you get it, seeing acupuncturist. Why? Because there are acupuncture and acupressure points that can assist you with quitting smoking. That's important. You really want to look to quit smoking. It's bad for you in so many ways. Lung cancer and more. Lung cancer, pancreatic cancer. Simply see an acupuncturist and make acupuncture a part of your life, okay? Because acupuncture is my life. What's yours?